Thanks for the call. Yeah, it took me a minute. I was out in Chicago yesterday, which is your time zone, and I realized, oh, I have another hour because it's 12:30 on the East Coast, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So where are you
12:30
going
for me.
now?
I'm in New York. Up in Harlem. I'm in New York City,
I love
and
it.
I'm here for a couple of days, and then I'm starting off. I just got back. I was on the road with Madeline Peru, the singer,
Oh,
for
yeah.
like 10 days, and then I've got 2 days off, and then I'm headed all over to Europe with Chris Bodie, all over the place. So
Oh, good
just
for
trying to
you.
like get my laundry done, all that fun, stupid stuff, you know.
Yeah. No, it's great. I have a reoccurring dream that I'm in a big
Yes.
place like New York, just wandering around like you are, taking
Ah,
pictures. So I'm living through you on International Jazz Day in my dreams.
right. And I'm actually in Harlem,
I
which has
love it.
probably changed a lot since the 50s, but
Well,
yeah, I'm
it's
here.
it's still the home of the Renaissance. Well, man, I got to tell you,
Indeed.
your
Indeed.
your album is in my hands right now, and I have worn
Oh,
this thing out in my car.
thank
My
you
son
so
and I
much.
have just my
It's
son's name
so
is
cool.
Miles for obvious reasons, and we just
Sure.
we've hit it hard. So it's
Oh,
great.
that's so cool. I'm glad you're enjoying it. The funny thing is, and I put a tune in there that was like just like a bebop head that was kind of free called Wiggle Room. But
Yeah.
generally, the types of things that I've always gravitated towards in the kind of music is more like lyrical and like longer melodies and stuff. So like I've kind of started to embrace that instead of just like, oh, now I got a lot of jazz. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
and in that respect, I feel like sometimes the guy who produced the record, Chris Hagen, is a dear friend of mine. He lives in New York and he's a film scorer. He's just a great composer. He kind of gravitates towards that kind of stuff. Like we grew up listening to, as much as jazz, we grew up listening to like Ennio Morricone and all these, so I love all that stuff. But I feel like people have told me that it's accessible in that way. It's not too crazy, and I've sort of made peace with that. A lot of jazz guys, and I play a lot of this music too.
Yeah.
Some music can be very complex.
Yeah.
And I have a little rule that if I don't, I just want, like your son, and I just want you to be able to. A friend of mine, a guitar player, said to me, I hope you don't. I made a solo record and just solo piano. And my friend said, my wife, I hope you don't take it the wrong way. It helps her fall asleep. I said, sure, whatever.
Yeah. 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 Right.
Why not?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Right.
whatever gets you there,
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, it's a wonderful album, and before
Thank
we
you.
kind of get into the album a little bit more, how did you survive COVID? We're looking at 4 years ago this all happened. It sent
Oh
ripples
my
through
God,
the
it's been 4 years. Yeah.
Yeah. How did you survive it? How did it change you?
Well, I'll tell you, it was difficult. What I found myself, my habits were, of course, I like everybody else, I was sort of glued to the television and the news, and because we had nothing better to do. So I realized every time I did that, I just got angry and pissed off. So I said, I'm not going to do that.
Yep.
I'm just going to start practicing or working on the music because for me, I realized, and this was a big realization, was that not only music for me is not only is it an avocation, or I mean a vocation, it's a hobby.
Yeah.
So like so some people who were like, oh, I baked bread and I put a roof on my house and built a new deck, and I never did any of that stuff. So I was practicing and practicing and practicing, and then I'm like, what am I practicing? And that's a different muscle, obviously, than playing with other people. Because a few months later, I did some gig where everybody was nonstop and everything. And it was like, oh, how does this work again? It took us a minute to get back into it. But then, so after the realization, like, what am I practicing for? I just started writing. And I realized it's something that I've done since I started piano when I was 10. And I did a first gig when I was 12. And I would say I started writing music when I was around that time, it's just started improvising, coming up with melodies and things like that. So for me, the realization that, and I've always written for different films. I used to write music for a cartoon, all sorts of stuff. So, but for me to write for myself, I'm like, I'm really going to just sort of dig into this. And this record is sort of culmination and the sort of the harvesting of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
So,
Sure. So,
so that's where it came.
yeah, for sure. So what was the first live show you saw that
Oh
blew you
man.
away?
Well, I'll tell you a couple things. So my dad, who was like a piano player that played by ear, he exposed me to some pretty cool stuff. And by the time I was 14, I was doing chamber music. I was involved in all like classical music. But a couple of things that come to mind. One thing was that in 1978, my dad took me. Our friend of the family owned. He owned the jazz workshop in Paul's Mall in Boston, Mass, which I'm from. A guy named Fred Tatum, and he had everybody in there. Miles Monk. I mean, Keith Jarrett was his house pianist. He had everybody in different. It was amazing. So he used to help run the Boston Folk Jazz Festival, and we saw 1978. I saw Oscar Peterson, Ella Fitzgerald, Count Basie, and Joe Pass on the same bill, and I was backstage. So I'm like watching Oscar warm up.
Wow.
Like people just sort of gathered around a piano. So that was crazy. Also, some other memorable things. I used to study classical music, so my dad took me to Symphony Hall when I was in my teens. I was studying a lot of classical music, and he took me to see Vladimir Horowitz, who only played Sunday at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
That was his thing. And so I got to see this, old guy playing Rachmaninoff and saying, "Oh yeah, this is the song that my friend Sergei Rachmaninoff wrote for me." So I've been pretty blessed in that sense. And I also think the first time I saw Miles, I went to Oberlin College, and a friend of mine was a pianist. Two guys, we went to Cleveland to see Miles Davis. This is around the record Star People. So it was Miles, Al Foster, Mike Stern, and Marcus Miller play at a place called the Front Row Theater. You know, the ones that would go around in a circle. It was a small theater, but so we're like right there. So that was amazing. So yeah, I've gotten to see a bunch of jazz festivals and stuff like that. I've been really lucky in that respect.
So what has been the most enjoyable part of being a professional musician for all these years? You've already talked about all the incarnations. What do you look forward to the most? What gets you excited every day?
Honestly, so in full disclosure, I mean, I always say I just turned 60, and I always say, gee, the touring thing is a young man's game. So when you're 20, it doesn't matter. You can get up, and so I don't really, I think it was Phil Woods that said, "You're really getting paid to travel, not to play gigs."
Yeah.
So the joy for me, and if I'm doing it right, the joy for me is to be in the moment, and I play for myself and the other musicians first, and then the audience, kind of like that. It's all one thing. But for me, I always felt, and I just had a record release party for this record in Birdland, and all these people came, and the joy of that is that just like a big party, and for me, it's the best part of. It's a lot of work, but music brings people together. So for me, it's that. And
Yeah.
I can go to Chicago and a friend can come see me, or I have a friend who's a sax player I went to school with in Vienna, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to come see your show." And whatever. I mean, and that's what I think. I feel like, and I felt like that, especially over COVID. I'd done some live streams from my house because I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
One day I was so frustrated. I just went to I'm a block from Central Park North. I took a little keyboard out there and just started playing because I didn't know what to do with myself. I'm like, I have to play for people.
Yeah.
So a lot of it for me now is to try to connect on, there's so much, especially now on YouTube and everything, and the young crop of kids these days, there's so much in the DNA of YouTube and everything. There's so much information and so much exact CSI investigating how somebody did something technical. There's all that stuff. So all those kids have all that. And I think the thing that I feel if I'm on my game, is that I can offer something that's sort of intangible, where somebody's moved by something that I did, and and you immediately get the sort of energy coming back. So for me, that's the joy in it at this point, having, because I don't. The places sometimes are a blur, So, oh, hello. So the places are sometimes a blur for me. So it's sort of like that's the special part of it, is the human contact. And I feel like in a funny way, we're sort of like healers. So beyond the fact that I have to make a living doing this, I just want to be able to use this record in these types of situations to just continue to be able to do that, because I feel it's pretty important.
Yeah, absolutely. So in honor of International Jazz Day, I got to ask you, why do you love
Sure.
jazz?
I love it. I think the main thing is it feels, like Duke Ellington said, it's just there's good music and bad music, but I enjoy the element of freedom involved in it, where even though there are certain parameters in the music, there's a certain freedom where if you have a good tune or something, it's like a springboard to express yourself and to go into some other place where you're out of your head, where something else sort of takes over. And that's, I know it's a very esoteric answer, but that's the thing about jazz, is the freedom of it,
Yeah.
to express yourself. And a lot of it, a lot of jazz and blues was born out of people having to find a way to express themselves under, difficult circumstances.
Yeah.
And a lot of those musics come from that, especially blues and all that. So that's the important part for me. And I think we all have that in common.
Absolutely. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
That's a good question. I feel like, yeah, that's interesting. I feel like in terms of my music that I'm trying to project, I feel like I feel like there's a sense of humor to it. Sometimes I feel like there's a sense of like we all have there's a sense of pain in it sometimes, or longing or something. And I feel like at my best, compositionally and also playing live, I can express that. I'm starting to feel like there's a voice to express that. And, obviously everybody's perception of me, I feel like in a way, maybe this is an older thing, like I feel like it's out of my control. It's not really my business how everyone's going to perceive you how they perceive you,
Yeah.
So I feel like for me, music has always been a way to just express myself and to get my feelings out and stuff like that. So that I guess in the best possible way. Sometimes it's a bit introspective, but it's a way for me to express that, I guess.
Yeah.
You know
So
what I mean?
yeah, for sure. So if anyone wants to catch you live, obviously you got a large itinerary. Where's the best place to go and to get this wonderful album and any other previous works?
Well, I'm starting to play a little bit more. I'm gonna book something at Birdland again soon. I just did a thing at Birdland on what was it, April 16th, and I'm gonna book something pretty soon there. I have a different band that I play with under different circumstances. I play with these amazing guys, and I'm playing at the Bitter End when I get back into town. Bitter End is like an old, I don't know, like rock club. They have every kind of music in there. It's downtown on Bleecker Street. I'm playing there June 11th with this phenomenal band that I've played with a few times. This great guitarist, Oz Noy, who's a phenomenal guitarist. The great Will Lee, that's the bass player, who's played on everything. Clint DeGannon on drums, and a fantastic tenor player, Andy Snifter, who's he's played with Paul Simon and the Stones, but these guys are amazing. And this thing, they have a really nice Hammond there, so I play Hammond and keyboards there, so I'm doing that. And just I'll be out. I'm afraid in May. I'm with Chris Bodie all over Europe.
Okay.
We're going to Poland. Oh my God, Poland, Berlin, Vienna, Czech Republic. I mean, he doesn't stop, and I've worked with him for years. We're going to Croatia, Dubai. It's just like sort of nonstop.
Right.
So just keeping that going. Yeah, but so just trying to get more of that going. And then I'm trying to do, I did over COVID, I did a live stream at a guy's studio in Brooklyn. He's just a live studio and that's just a live stream. So I worked there before with a great harmonica player by the name of Gregoire Marais. He's phenomenal. So I'm gonna do like a duo thing with him. So little things are popping up now.
Yeah, I love it. The warm months are upon us. Andy, it's been so nice. It's been an honor to talk with you. Thank you for your time. Have great travels, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much. We appreciate that. Stay well, sir. Okay?
Hey, jazz fans, Joe Domino here, the host of the weekly Neon Jazz radio show and regular interview series being produced and distributed from Lee Summit, Missouri. We are quite excited to let you know about the first annual Lee Summit Jazz Fest taking place this summer on June 22nd, 2024 at the Bridge Space located at 210 Southwest Market Street. There will be 8 robust acts, including the Back Alley Brass Band and the great Lee Summit Jazz Orchestra. There will also be art vendors and food trucks to make this a must-attend event. All details can be found at www.bridgespace.us/jazz. We will see you there.